What is up, Entre Nation? Jeff Lerner here, and today's topic is one of my favorites because I have seen firsthand how powerful the mind is for controlling our quality of life. The quality of our thoughts is the single greatest factor, in my opinion, in our overall quality of life. But the key is, much like our eating habits, it's not enough just to do them right for a day or a week. And also, we're not defined by what we think at our best. We are defined by our thoughts when we're at our worst or when we're struggling, going through hard times. Those are the thoughts that have the most influence on our life. Just like it only takes a couple of bad moments. Literally, you can undo a month of physical progress with an eating plan in like a few 5-minute deviations, stuffing your face with a couple cheeseburgers, right? That's how our thoughts are too. It's about the average, the consistency, how we're doing day to day, not just when we're feeling good and at our best. The amazing thing with all of this is your mind can be trained to be great. There is more and more evidence coming out that shows that talent and even genetics, even personality are not the biggest predictor of excellence. It's actually about how we practice, how we think, how we apply ourselves on an ongoing basis. Positive thinking is something you can practice. It's something you can get good at. Unfortunately, it's just not something most of us were taught or modeled when we were growing up. So you got to actually learn how to do it. And I'm going to share with you exactly how in this video. So we'll dive into that, but in the meantime, if you would, go ahead and subscribe. I appreciate your support so much on my channel here, and let's dig in and break free of negative thinking. Now, I assume since you're watching this video that you are interested in changing negative thoughts, or at least developing more positive ones. And I was once desperate to get my mind out of the rut of negative thinking. And though for the most part, I feel like I've succeeded, I also now know that the work never stops. And I have found one of the most helpful things for reinforcing and maintaining positive change is to not just know what to do, but also know why the thing to do is the thing to do. So in this video, I'm going to explain how the mind works before I explain how to improve it. So it's important to watch the whole video because if you just skip to the end, then it won't make as much sense or be nearly as effective. And when I was researching which information would be most helpful to share with you in this video, I naturally checked out a guy named Dr. Joe Dispenza, who is one of the foremost experts on how our thoughts shape our lives. And he says that by the time we are 35 years old, 95% of our mental life is just a repetition of memorized behaviors, emotional reactions, unconscious habits, attitudes, beliefs, and perceptions that basically function like a computer program. And that means there is just 5% left for our conscious mind. You can probably see the problem. You could be trying so hard to have positive thoughts, but there's 95% that's just stuck in old patterns and thinking. You're not even in control. You're not even aware of it most of the time. So how do you break the habit of negative thinking permanently when so much of it is happening outside of your own conscious observation? Well, we'll get to that in a moment here, but first I want to just really talk for a moment about consciousness. The thing that is so remarkable to me about the mind is how it automates fairly complex routines, not even just what we do, but even how we feel about what we do. You know, think about your daily routine. You wake up, you grab a coffee, you eat breakfast, you brush your teeth, you go to work, you say hi to one person you like, you're forced to say hi to another person you don't like. All of these actions happen more or less automatically. The responses in the brain are automated. And so there's stimuli that say, okay, I gotta back my car out. The garage went up, so now I gotta back my car out. But you don't actually think about backing your car out. You just do it naturally in response to the stimuli of the garage door opening, right? And here's the thing. These responses don't just have a behavioral pattern attached to them or a set of motions that you go through, even maybe facial responses or words that you say or gestures or intonations. They also have memories attached to them. And memories are intertwined with feelings. So like if I know I get a coffee, I know I'm gonna feel good. I remember that feeling from before and it's attached to anticipation of having that feeling again. And I know that if I'm running late to an appointment or especially the airport, I'm going to be miserable. I hate that feeling, right? It doesn't have to happen for me to know how it feels. Now, in terms of how we feel, it mostly comes down to a set of chemicals called, our happy chemicals. Basically, it's serotonin, it's oxytocin, it's endorphins, and it's especially one called dopamine. Now, at this point, it's time for me to quote a rat study. You've probably heard more than once about studies that scientists do on rats. It seems like every new scientific discovery seems to be tied to the torture of some poor rat. Well, surprise, it's no different with dopamine. Long story short, when rats do things that create dopamine, or if scientists just straight up inject them or dose them with dopamine, the rats get really excited. And whatever the thing was that they connected to the dopamine, they will do it again and again and again. And they'll do it faster and they'll do it stronger and they'll do as much of it as they can get because they want the dopamine, right? And then when the dopamine is reduced in rats, they not only won't do the thing again, they won't do anything. They become the rat equivalent of the 40-year-old guy sitting on the couch in his parents' basement eating potato chips who won't move out or get a job. Now, unfortunately, most of the things in humans that produce dopamine, some of the other happy chemicals too, but especially dopamine, are not actually things that are that good for us in the long run. I'm talking things like video games, talking things like drinking soda or eating anything with a lot of sugar, sometimes a lot of salt. Different people respond differently. But fortunately, the brain can be reprogrammed to attach dopamine and the other happiness chemicals to more productive behaviors. So instead of having a dopamine release from things that aren't helpful, what if you could actually feel good doing things that maybe you don't like so much, at least you don't like them right now, but they're actually good for you, like doing hard work or doing homework or working out at the gym. We have learned that the brain likes to associate memories and the associated feelings that are coupled with the memories to routines. So what if we could associate memories and feelings with positive and productive routines? Well, that's actually doable. That's what this video is about. And there are a few things you can repeat daily that will start to reprogram your mind. And look, this is going to take some discipline and some training. It's not easy. It doesn't happen overnight. But once you start feeling good more often, it becomes self-fulfilling. And actually, a lot of us have experienced this before. Imagine sometime in your life, most of us have had this phase where we're like, I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to start getting up early or maybe going to the gym. Even just use getting up early. Have you ever noticed that once you get up early a few nights in a row, it starts to get easier? And admittedly, some of that is attached to your melatonin cycle will adjust. But a lot of it is adjusted to the fact that you actually start to feel good about yourself for getting up early. And this behavior that's really hard and probably was really hard for you for most of your life starts to actually feel better, especially when you start to see the productive fruits of the behavior and you like the way those feel. The memory of being more productive and the feeling of pride and confidence that comes from being more productive starts to get attached to the behavior of getting up early, which maybe at one point or even maybe still you don't like so much, and you get momentum and you actually start doing it more easily. So the first step here is every time a negative thought appears, you can practice interrupting it. If you can interrupt it, you can get control on it. The key is to stop letting our subconscious mind just running nonstop on autopilot without our conscious involvement. And to do this, you need to be able to give full attention to your mind. This is what they call mindfulness. Google mindfulness, you'll find gazillions of search results online and articles about how we live in a society that is pretty low on the mindfulness spectrum because we're so stimulated all the time and we have all these neurotransmitter responses, especially dopamine, that most of us are going around in a constant state of stimulus and response at a chemical level, which is the opposite of mindfulness, which happens at a consciousness level, right? And it'll be really strange at first when you start becoming highly mindful around negative thoughts, because typically negative thoughts are reactions, which are by definition not mindful. So you can start with some powerful questions. First of all, at any given moment, just interrupt yourself and say, where are my thoughts right now? And is this thought serving me? And inevitably at some point you're going to ask that question so many times that one of these times you're going to stumble onto, wait, I'm having a negative thought right now. Well, is that thought serving me? And sometimes you're having thoughts that feel innocent enough, but when you actually stop and observe them, you realize they're a wolf in sheep's clothing, and they're actually not moving your life forward. Maybe they're wasting time, maybe they're draining you of energy, maybe they're making you jealous or resentful. And so as soon as you start to stumble onto these negative thoughts, as you simply increase mindfulness, then you immediately redirect your mind and come up with affirmations. Affirmations may be cheesy, but they work. Say, I am grateful for such. I am happy for such. And when it comes to mindfulness and affirmations, the expression fake it till you make it is highly relevant, because over time, you become what you're feeling. It doesn't happen the other way. You're not going to feel based on who you are. Over time, you become based on what you're feeling. So fake it. Enforce the feeling, and I'll talk a little bit more about how to do that. And over time, you'll evolve into that as a genuine, natural part of your being. Now, I created something in my training company, Entre, called the Awesome Life Challenge. And in order to do that, in order to do it authentically, I had to go through a period of being extremely mindful and extremely self-aware so that I could actually experiment, because we can't experiment with things that we don't control, right? So I was constantly checking in on my own level of positivity, my own level of productivity, looking at my life physically, personally, and professionally, because I was trying to actually create a course and a challenge to raise that for everyone else. And what I found is the effort required from a mindfulness standpoint just to create that course has actually never stopped paying dividends. My entire being has been elevated in terms of mindfulness because I took a few weeks and created that program. And it never stopped. So as you build this habit, it becomes almost, it becomes a habit, right? So here's something you can do to instantly start physicalizing and changing the negative thoughts. Because again, as human beings, we work very well with our hands, and sometimes we're a lot clumsier in our heads. So anytime you can physicalize something, I say work with our hands, I just mean metaphorically, like anytime we can make something physical, a lot of times it's easier to get control of, right? Game changer strategy is to smile. And it's not cheesy, I promise. Smiling physically, biologically releases neurotransmitters called endorphins, which are very similar to dopamine. Remember, that's one of the happiness chemicals. When you move the muscles in your mouth, it actually triggers a feel-good response. It's actually one of the first things I do before I shoot videos is I force myself. I have this breathing, face expanding thing I do that's basically kind of a big, crazy Joker smile that changes my energy. And I like the way it feels, and I think it comes through on camera. And I'm gonna try to shoot the rest of this video without being super self-conscious about it. Smiling changes the way you feel. So smile whenever you're feeling negative. Other times too, just smile as often as possible, right? Pay attention to your negative thoughts and redirect them by smiling. Ultimately, you'll rewire your brain to think more positively about every situation. We've learned now how to interrupt the mind when you feel negative, but what about training the mind to just constantly, actually getting in and training the subconscious so that when you're not consciously intervening or you're not dealing with a negative thought, your just overall level goes up, right? Wouldn't that be easy if you didn't have to be so conscious about this process? Well, here's something you can do. Write out 5 questions that you can ask yourself several times a day. And I mean, set an alarm on your phone and stop and ask yourself these questions. Here's some of the questions as an example. What am I grateful for? How could I make what I'm doing right now fun? How can I demonstrate love to someone I care about? How can I be more excellent in my life right now, this moment? Why am I happy right now? Take a moment on that last question. Why am I happy right now? This is a really powerful hack. This is like ultra ninja level brain science applied on ourselves, right? Why questions engage the brain, the parts of the brain, the problem-solving parts of the brain that want to find a solution. When you start a sentence with why, the brain can't help but try to fill in the answer. And you end the sentence with the word happy. So what happens, whatever you end a sentence with, you tend to feel. Like, why is everybody always picking on me? See what I did? I literally wasn't trying to do that. But why is everybody always picking on me? I slouched on picking on me. It was just a natural state-based reaction to the terms picking on me. We naturally adapt our state to the way our thoughts end. So if you start a question with why, and you end a question with a state that's a desirable state, the brain is automatically going to try to decode what's in between those two words or those two concepts and connect them, right? So when I say, why does such and such make me happy? Why does spending time with my kids make me so happy? I actually do get joy from spending time with my kids. Let me think of something else. Why does helping my son with his math homework make me so happy? So what's happening in the brain is I'm connecting the happiness with the question why, which is forcing my brain into problem-solving mode to connect those two things. And whatever is in the blank you will slowly train your mind that that thing really does make you happy. So if you want to do more of something that's not good for you, why does getting up early in the morning and going to the gym make me so happy? Ask yourself that question over and over and over, and eventually you will train your brain that the answer to being happy, the why, is to go to the gym, get up early and go to the gym. I love using why questions. They are like one of the most amazing hacks and tricks to get into your subconscious and actually do the work in places that you can't normally see. Now, the last tip here is really the icing on the cake. And it is about going fully into the 95% of the brain that we discussed earlier. That's the subconscious that we can't normally see. It's normally kind of off limits to the average person most of the time. And the way to do this is to use visualization. The reason that works is the brain doesn't actually know the difference between an image that's created now or an image from the past. It only knows the feeling associated with the image. And the trick here is to be able to visualize what you want and then attach that positive feeling to it. It's such a powerful technique. So how do you conjure a positive feeling? Once you get clear on what you want, or what you want to want, is maybe a better way to say it, how do you create a positive feeling that you connect to it? It's really easy. You actually just summon a positive memory, because remember, memory is intertwined with feeling. You just summon a positive memory that already has a positive feeling associated with it. Because feelings have residue, right? When you feel a feeling, it lingers. Thoughts, on the other hand, flicker back and forth really fast. So you conjure up a positive memory that has a positive feeling, and then even when you switch your thought, feelings are gonna linger. That's why, like, if you get in a fight with your partner and the issue gets resolved, everything isn't happy-go-lucky right away. There's almost like a cooling off period, right? It takes time for feelings to dissipate. So conjure up a positive feeling that has a really positive emotion attached to it, and then immediately flip your thoughts to the thing that you want to have a positive feeling associated with it. And now you're thinking about the other thing while the positive feeling from the first thing is still happening. Do that back and forth a lot, and eventually the two things become paired together. Now, in general, all of these tactics and concepts anchor in the idea of getting mastery of your thoughts and emotions. And in general, the best way I have found to get mastery of your thoughts and emotions is through meditation. I mean, really connecting inside yourself and disconnecting from everything around you in the outside world. Because ultimately, think about it. You're never going to effectively plot a course through landscape that you don't know. You have to have some sort of a knowledge of the territory. You have to have, context if you're ever going to effectively navigate anything. So you're never going to master your subconscious if you have no awareness of your subconscious, right? Meditation is how you get awareness of your subconscious. And a lot of people think meditation is this hard thing to do, but it's actually not doing anything. Meditation is not a thing that you do. Meditation is what happens. It's a leftover. It's what's left when you subtract all the things that are keeping you from subconscious awareness. Anyway, what consciousness is about processing information that comes in through our senses. What we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we feel, what we taste. 5 senses, right? If you simply remove processing from our 5 senses as much as humanly possible, what's left over is a meditative state, right? Close your eyes and you remove your sense of sight. You remove outside distractions. Remove ambient sound as much as possible. That's actually the main reason that you hum. It's not because humming is some special sound like me going, it's not like the most beautiful sound that I get lost in. It's basically because humming gives me something to listen to that isn't anything else from the outside world. And some people just listen to soft music so they're not distracted by outside sounds either. And then of course, when you meditate, you sit down. So you're not distracted by physical movements or by physical sensations or by the effort it takes to just hold our body up. Obviously, you're not eating anything, so you neutralize your sense of taste and you sit by yourself. You're not touching anyone. You're not touching anything other than maybe your butt that's frankly used to always touching something when you're sitting, and so you're kind of numb, desensitized to that. You're not eating anything. Everything is removed, right? And the magic thing that happens then is you start to connect to what's left, which are all the automated processes that are happening underneath your brain trying to process information that's coming in from the outside world. And it's going to feel strange at first, especially if you're doing it at a time when you're normally hyper-conscious, you're hyper-stimulated, you're normally racing around, right? the mind will still be addicted to the rush of the outside world, because all the stimulation from the outside world is what's producing those neurotransmitters that are literally what drives addiction. That's why meditation is so hard for people. It's literally like detox. But if you can sit and teach the body to do this, you will start to get control of your thoughts, and you will be one step closer to reducing negative thinking. If you think you might need some help doing this, there are tons of apps out there that can support you. The best one that I recommend is called Headspace. They have it for iPhone, they have it for Android. So listen, I hope that this video has been helpful for you. I hope that you're excited about breaking the addiction or the grip of negative thinking. This is something that, frankly, if I could get everybody to just watch one video, do one thing that this Jeff Lerner guy talks about and teaches, it would be this. Because if every single person did this, it would probably have a more dramatic impact on the world. It would lift more people out of poverty. It would reduce more crime. It would get more people healthy. It would probably reduce more, long-term degenerative diseases. It would change the world more than anything we could do if we just all did this. So did you learn something? Let me know. Have you ever tried any of these things? Is this something you struggle with? Moment of vulnerability, maybe, to let the internet know that this is something you struggle with and that you are going to proactively start to do something about it. Let me know in the comments below, and let me know if you have any questions. Did any of this land? Is there anything else I can do to help? I appreciate so much you watching this video. Again, I'll invite you to subscribe to my channel. Definitely hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and you can always find me online. You can find me in the EntreNation group at Facebook. It's a completely free group you can join. Check us out at EntreNation.com. And of course, like I said, subscribe. I do share several videos a week, and I appreciate you, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.